Hi, I'd like to review with you a few questions on oligopoly. Let's start out talking about cartels. So a cartel is when a group of firms try to act like a monopoly, where a monopoly is a single firm. Well, the advantage of a monopoly is monopolies tend to make more money when they can restrict output, raise price. And monopolies tend to especially make more money when it's hard for other firms to enter the market. And so in this case, cartels in which all the industry leaders will all went to the same schools, go to the same organizations. Well, that makes it easier to, when they trust each other, that you're not going to cheat on me. We're going to, if you do, there's some other commitment devices or, you don't want to mess with our friendship. It makes it easier to coordinate your decisions and act like a cartel. Two, it would be much more difficult to sustain a cartel in an industry when it's easy for a firm to sell a little extra product without anyone knowing. Well, that's true too. So it sounds like both of them, one and two, are true. And also another one would be if it's easy for other firms to enter this cartel, when there's high prices, that makes it harder to have a cartel too. But in this case, we want to bring up my pen here. But it sounds like both 1 and 2 are true. Prisoner's dilemma. Prisoner's dilemma is a classic case of that, is when two people commit a robbery and they're brought in. They don't have sufficient evidence to convict them on this charge, but they have enough evidence to get them. So they take them to separate rooms and try to get them to confess. And so and if you confess, you get to go free. If you don't confess, then you get a very, very long sentence. Well, you have an incentive to get for a shorter sentence, you have an incentive to confess. Well, let's look at this one. This is two companies. For two companies, you want to be up here with a high price. That's like acting like a cartel. If you both have a low price, then you don't make as much profit. In my example, you have half as much profit. But notice, if you have one firm, so let's say firm A or firm B chooses a high price. Well, does firm A want to make 10 million or 20 million? Well, obviously 20 million. They want to choose a low price. On the other hand, if firm B chooses a low price, does firm A want to make 1 or 5? Well, it wants to make 5. So either way, they want to choose a low price. We would call that a dominant strategy. Dominant strategy. Dominant strategy. So D-O-M-I-N-A-I-N. A doesn't want to show up. Dominant strategy. It's not the best writing in the world, but notice, dominant strategy is no matter what firm B does, high price or low price, I make the most money if I have a low price. Well, likewise, let's see if firm B has a dominant strategy. So if let's say A chooses a high price. So go this way. Well, if A chooses a high price, does B want to make 10 or 20? Well, 20. Choose a low price. If A chooses a low price down here, does B want to make 1 or 5? Well, 5 is greater than 1. I'd rather make $5 million than $1 million. So B also has a dominant strategy. No matter what A does, B makes more money. He chooses a low price. So both of them have a dominant strategy. And so in this case, what would we predict the outcome? So if it's not going to be played over and over and over again, which it makes it easier to coordinate and act like a cartel, we would expect in this one time period game to have both of them have a low price. And also I should mention that, so both of them having a low price is right there. They make half as much as if they work together, but each firm has an incentive to, we call it cheat. In U.S. antitrust law, that's actually what you should do. You shouldn't coordinate the decisions. You should act more competitively. But this is also a Nash equilibrium. Nash equilibrium because each firm is doing the best they can do given what their opponent is doing. Let's go on to coordination games. Well, coordination games are different than those prisoner's dilemma. Coordination games are when you coordinate your decisions, you're better off. It could end up being doing the same thing, especially in standards, or it could be doing the opposite of what the other firm does. So if they go to one fishing ground, you go to another. If they go to yours, you should be at a different one. So in this case, table above, each one's $10 million, and firm A chooses U.S. units. So in this case, firm A chose U.S. units. What should firm B do? So that means firm B, does firm B want to make 1 million or 7 million? Well, supposedly they would prefer 7 million. They actually would prefer an extra $1 million if they both could have metric systems, or in the United States, if all firms could agree to have the same metric system. But this could also be true in terms of electrical outlets in different countries, what side of the road to drive on, a bunch of different things. You want to coordinate your decisions so you don't have a head-on collision. But in our question here, looks like our right answer, firm B chooses U.S. units and will gain $7 million.